Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. I thought we'd do a video talking about the changelogs that have come out in the last few days, and also an It's Fixed which has accompanied them. Turns out Gaijin has fixed the armor issues that people were having in ground, and to be honest, these are issues that shouldn't really be there in the first place, and have also been issues that have been present in the past, mainly in the last update. So hopefully they get a handle of these things, because unfortunately if they don't, it basically means your armor is going to get negated every once in a while, and you're not going to know why. The updates also cover a bunch of different changes, so that's what we'll cover in this video, and in future videos we'll have a look at some of the other events and stuff which Gaijin have in store. As always, if you enjoy the content, make sure to subscribe and like the video. Let's get started. So the first one we're going to talk about, and the most annoying bug of this update, is of course the fact that when you reversed in your vehicle, shells would completely ignore your armor. Basically, hits from API and also APAG shells ignored the armor of tanks that were moving away from the player firing at it, and it would just straight up negate it. And guess what? They made a few vehicles, including the Coelian, incredibly busted because of this. Because if you moved away from it and didn't realize, you just died within an instant. Because it just basically made your armor not exist. They say this bug was a result of the explosion being incorrectly calculated, which resulted in it exploding behind the armor, despite the fact that the impact of the shell itself and the secondary fragments worked correctly. This problem was very apparent and noticeable, but its correction required a complicated fix, as the error could only be repeated in online battles, making finding the reason behind it significantly harder. So they have fixed it, but I will say in the last update before this one, there was a similar issue that turned up too. So I hope this doesn't become a recurring problem, because when your armor is just completely negated, especially since a lot of the games right now rely on just ridiculous autocannon vehicles wandering around and rat-a-tatting things, it probably won't be very good for the health of the game if you can't defend against it. Even yesterday, I was seeing stuff like XM246s spam their shells at stuff like IS-4Ms and just nuking them, because all you need is one lucky shell to hit the basic bottom of the turret, it bouncing down into the hull and somehow killing everything inside. There was also another armor bug that they fixed as well. There was an issue with destroyed components on vehicles. So basically with kinetic and chemical shells, when they came into contact with certain vehicle modules that had already been destroyed, such as fuel tanks and Spall liners, but also other stuff, the destroyed part still took part in the damage model, meaning that if you penetrated through it again, there was a chance that the fragments, or the secondary fragments, would not actually pass through the destroyed module and instead get stuck on it, even though it was destroyed. So if you, let's say, shot a vehicle and destroyed its fuel tank, you could shoot it in the same spot, and that destroyed fuel tank would eat the shell again. And luckily they fixed that, but once again, that is a huge problem for the game, and one which was around since the last update. It was kind of interesting how in the last update people were complaining about the missiles not working, and a lot of them weren't, and it absolutely sucked. But when it came to this armor, I feel like there was a lot less outcry about it. Maybe people didn't know it was happening, or didn't know what was going on, but it became very apparent after a few days, where a lot of the time you just weren't able to actually do anything. And luckily, players bug reported this stuff, and eventually it got fixed. But how long are we since the update came out? How long did this affect the game? It's a ridiculous bug to have for such a long time, and just shouldn't even be happening in the first place. There is also update 2.49.0.48. This one went through a bunch of different fixes that happened. For aircraft, we had the F5THTCU. There was a bug that caused the aircraft to not be correctly recognized by radars with target recognition by radar signatures, so basically the NCTR. It wasn't working, now it is. For the A10s, there was a bug where some elements of the hood moved along the head movements in VR, and that's been fixed. I've actually been hearing a lot from some VR players that Basically, there's a lot of issues with VR right now. I wonder if it's something to do with the fact that you have Aces of Thunder, which is being worked on, which once again, I still don't think has a release date. At least I haven't seen a release date for it, and it just seems like that kind of project is meandering along. It was supposed to be out last Christmas, and we're in October of this year, so no idea what's happening with it. For ground vehicles, there are some other changes, such as the Tiger 2P, or the NR150 as it's known now. The wrongly modelled gun cradle has been removed, and a correct one will be modelled in the future, which will be added to both the Tiger 2 and also the Kungstiger. So basically, the updated model had a wrong modelled gun cradle, and now they are going to fix it. So, goddamn, it looks like this... These vehicles are still not finished, and maybe when the Tiger 2H updated model comes in, maybe that's when it'll be fixed. There was also a bug that caused the player to get kicked out of a Nuke aircraft and switch back to the TEL vehicle after their TAS vehicle got destroyed. That's been fixed. Can you imagine that? My god, that would be so annoying. There was also a bug where starting an air event in Ground Arcade Battles after pressing the key to deploy a multi-vehicle SAM launcher would cause the silhouette of the would-be deployed launcher to appear in front of the aircraft or helicopter. There was also a similar issue, could also occasionally occur when respawning in a new ground vehicle, and this has been fixed too. There was a bug where switching to a multi-vehicle SAM vehicle and opening the binoculars would cause the camera to point in the wrong direction, and when exiting the binoculars, the camera would point forward instead of where the player was looking before it has been fixed. So, once again, little small bugs, but all fixed, and that's the main thing. For the interface, they also fixed a few things. For aircraft and helicopters, the ability to enable the compass display in third-person view using the show compass in the third-person view setting in the aircraft combat settings and helicopter combat settings has been added. Kind of surprised that that wasn't in the first place. I feel like that type of feature would have probably been, added to War Thunder like a decade ago. There is obviously the kind of stuff you have at the top of the screen, but this is just an additional part of it. But it's just interesting to see that it kind of took this long. I kind of forgot about that type of idea since it was so standard in quite a few games back in the day. There's also a bug where some targets could sometimes disappear from the radar indicator of ground vehicles. That's been fixed. That's actually kind of busted. If that was the case, they'd just disappear from the radars, so you wouldn't be able to see them. That sounds awful. There was also a bug that could cause the laser warning detection indicator on ground vehicles to disappear very quickly or not appear at all has been fixed. Have they actually fixed the bug with it where it just leaves the basically where you got the warning from, so you could get multiple of them on the same vehicle, and it just basically had a bunch of like arrows all over the place? I don't remember if I saw a changelog where they fixed that. I'm guessing they did because it's been around for ages. There's also a bug where the option to leave a vehicle would disappear from the pause menu after losing a reconnaissance UAV or reconnaissance aircraft, and that has been fixed. And for the achievements, they fixed a random amount of bugs too. So a bug that recently caused the Multistrike award to be unobtainable when playing with ground vehicles and naval vessels has been fixed. Okay, that is a big issue because that is a daily and that is a special set. So people could be sat there all day trying to get these things, but you weren't able to? And then they also had to pay SL or G to change it without even knowing that it was broken? That is... okay, that's a real big issue, at least in my opinion. The ground multi-strike and water multi-strike awards can now only be completed in air battles, and this is because a multi-strike requires the player to destroy another vehicle within 30 seconds after destroying the previous one, whereas ground and water multi-strikes require the player to destroy the next vehicle within just 5 seconds after destroying the previous one. Originally, these awards were intended for destroying AI vehicles in air battles, which I suppose makes sense. The description of the ground multi-strike and water multi-strike awards have been corrected and now point out that they need to destroy AI vehicles, which, once again is positive, and a bug where the Mission Maker award could not be obtained for destroying AI vehicles in air battles has been fixed too. So once again, just dailies and specials not working again, which is just wild to me. since, there's a lot of people who do the Battle Pass stuff and also rely on those things to work. For graphics, there's a new water flow simulation effect around tanks that have been added. They can be seen only on the very high water quality setting. A bug where the trace effects from tanks on water didn't fade out properly and has been fixed. A bug where 3D models of some missiles were also not displayed in the protection analysis has been fixed too. So kind of crazy at that same time. For the sounds, they adjusted everything. And I played the game yesterday, and I hadn't played it properly until like last Friday, and I could not believe that everything had changed once again in ground. So yeah, the volume of everything was all over the place, and the changelog kind of confirms that. So the sound of enemy and allied ground vehicle tank guns have been adjusted, so the distance and direction of the shot are more noticeable. There was also an excessive large volume difference between the player's small and large caliber automatic guns, and that's been fixed. So stuff like the ZSU-57-2, 2S-38, the Baglet Panzer, and the automatic cannons were too loud, and then changing the volume of gunfire in the sound settings now works more noticeably for the player's ground vehicles. Sound artifacts when firing missiles, flares, and chaff when viewed from the cockpit of jet aircraft at high speeds have also been fixed, and the sound of ground vehicles moving in water has been made slightly more noticeable. The sound of water falling after explosions has also been made more distinct, and the shell calibers between 90mm and 27mm now produce a larger splash sound when they hit water. Previously, these caliber shells produced the same splash sound as rifle caliber bullets when they hit the water too. So they changed a lot of ground force sounds, so you're going to have to get used to it again. Hopefully they don't do this too much, but I suppose the sound guy needs to get paid. For customization, there is a new Jaws camouflage that's been added for the H-64E. Looks kind of nice. And also the Skyscraper, the Buck M3, and the SAMPT. There's a bug that caused the camouflage unlocks to not progress, and that's been fixed. That was also a similar issue that happened in the last update, once again, with these new multi-vehicle SAM systems. So it looks like it wasn't corrected for these new ones. For replays, there was a bug that caused the vehicle to jerk in replays when using the free camera and the lock current speed to vehicle speed function. That's been fixed. There's also a bug where the camera in replays will get stuck facing the ground after switching to the free camera. That was something that plagued me. And also a bug where outlined capture point circles on the ground might not display where they should be in ground battle replays has been fixed too. I also have another bug with them, but it's not like a huge one. Basically, sometimes when I spawn into replays, it just spawns me right next to the ground instead of on the vehicle that I use, which just seems a little bit odd. There was also another update, update 2.49.0.50, and we have a bunch of changes once again. For aircraft, it's mainly the high-tier stuff, so the FA-18C late for Germany, there's a bug that made it impossible to guide APKWS-2 M282s and the M151's missiles, and this has been fixed. For the FA-18C early and C Germany and C late for Germany and CF-188, they've also changed the icons for the GBU-12 to their proper ones, which is nice. The Su-27SM, the position of the MFD page with the artificial horizon in the cockpit has been fixed, and the Su-17 and Su-22s, the polyurethane foam fuel tank filler has been added to the wing fuel tanks, which reduces the likelihood of a fire or explosion when hit. They've been doing this for a lot of vehicles recently, and it's interesting to see it's mainly focused on American and Russian ones. For ground vehicles, there was a bug where some destructible modules, for example fuel tanks and Spall liners, will continue to affect secondary fragments and HE damage after being destroyed. This has been fixed. This is what we were talking about previously, but I didn't go into enough detail into it. Basically said modules only include those that disappear after being destroyed. So permanent modules such as the cannon breech or engine still interact with shells and secondary fragments when destroyed as normal. So yeah, the main stuff is fuel tanks and also Spall liners, and I suppose technically rounds as well if you hit, let's say, a two-stage round but only hit the kinetic penetrator. The BM-Oplot T, the thickness of the turret roof has been increased from 25 to 45. This will help it obviously against guns, trying to gun it down. The BM-Oplot T, there was a bug that caused the specific area on the turret roof to have no armor, and that's been fixed too. Well, that definitely helps it against not just, guns, but everything, because that means that bombs or anything else could definitely get through that gap. For the interface, they also had a bunch of changes. So there's a bug that could cause the interface in naval battles to stop displaying normally. That's been fixed. A bug where it was impossible to view the list of rewards for some achievements has been fixed too. And a bug where the vehicle rank requirements could be cut off in the Semper Fidelis marks of distinction on hover pop-ups has been fixed as well. And a bug that caused the corresponding pages of history achievement to not properly open when clicking on a vehicle's available task manager has been fixed too. There was a bug that caused the marker of the next weapon to be used in the visual weapon selector to display incorrectly for asymmetrically mounted weapons that could not be dropped separately, and that has been fixed as well. And for graphics, there was a bug where countermeasures hitting the ground would leave a very large crater, and that's been fixed. Can you imagine just doing a countermeasure run on a ground battle and just creating massive craters everywhere? And also there was a bug in cockpit view that made everything appear darker when SSAA and TSR were enabled, and that's been fixed. And that's awesome, because I was having that issue for the longest time, and I hope that my game is brighter now. And looking at it today, it does seem like it's a little bit brighter. A lot of people actually noted on the dev server and also the live server, why was my game so dark? And I couldn't figure out why. I changed basically all of my graphics settings, and it turns out it was just TSR the whole time. Fantastic. Well, luckily it is now fixed. As always, thank you for watching. Hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank GMG Smiley, CD Beans, Chieftain Mike, EMN3 Galaxy, Tulio Pontecorvo, Brendan Quinn, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Wartinder, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Ozzy Panzer, Alan Hacker, Liam Shear, Opium Prime, Lafouche, Sem, Aslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R. for supporting the channel.